Councilwoman Amourence Lee is the first Asian woman to serve on the San Mateo City Council and was appointed and elected to office in 2020. She has strengthened and empowered communities in the nonprofit, public, and private sectors for over 15 years. Thank you so much for participating in our Inspirations interview series today, Amourence. Could you start off by giving a little background about your cultural and ethnic identity?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you for being an inspiration to me. You are among many of the Gen Z leaders who I look up to. So thank you for this opportunity. So my cultural and ethnic identity, it's a great question, and I'm so happy they're asking. It's I'm mixed. I'm Hapa. My dad was born in Hawaii, ethnically Chinese. And my family had actually moved to Hawaii. My Chinese side of the family moved to Hawaii well before it was actually acquired statehood. And so we've been in the States now for generations. I'm actually fifth generation on my Chinese side. And on my mom's side, she is the daughter of a Jewish refugee who escaped Nazi Germany, and so yeah, I'm Jewish on my mom's side and Chinese on my dad's side. And I grew up in a very multicultural household. So I was also raised with 5 adopted sisters from China and my godmother who helped raise me, who's African American. And her daughter was African American and Brazilian. And so I grew up with Portuguese in the house, and we always had all kinds of exchange students, and there were Japanese exchange students, Chinese exchange students, and my sister's from China, so I had many languages in my home, and many people at the table who were chosen family.
How would you say that growing up in such a diverse household has kind of shaped your worldview and the way that you approach people?
I think that a big tent kind of philosophy is what guides me in terms of my sense of people's differences, but also our core in common humanity. So, I always say that, like, my mother tongue, the conversations that I was having at my dinner table were about, sort of deconstructing race and identity and politics. I grew up in a very politically active family. And so there was always a sense of, like, the politics is personal, that, we have a stake in the decisions that are made, and representation matters. And so for me, having a really strong connection to people who did not look like me, whose experience was completely different than mine, and also considering them family, knowing I had this very formative experience with my godmother. She literally helped raise me. And I was walking into, I think, the bathroom with her in some public space, and one of her dreads fell out, and I picked it up and I handed it to her, and I said, Jojo, your dread fell out, and she stopped and she turned to me and she said, thank you for giving me back a part of myself. And I think that many Black folks experience this repulsion to who they are, the hair that they have, the skin that they live with. And for me, it was very natural and obvious, to give this part of herself back to her and honor it, and treat it with respect. And that was the kind of the sentiments that I was raised with, is understanding people's humanity, and twisting hair and braiding hair, and and eating spam musubi, and really having this, like, amalgamation of different influences in my life, and creating this big sense of, like, family and like love, and the potential of, like, what happens when you invite people into into your home and understand how interconnected we are.
Could you describe your time and work in the nonprofit, public, and private sectors?
Oh my gosh. Yes. Um, well, it really like spans my entire career. So, I mean, I've worked in every sector. I started my career really kind of cutting my teeth in China, working at UNICEF. And so I was thrown into this amazing opportunity doing HIV prevention education with local government entities and helping to pilot some of the pioneering HIV prevention education work that was really helping to protect some of the most vulnerable community members, including migrant women who are vulnerable to sex trafficking, and doing it in the context of a lot of shame and taboo surrounding HIV and AIDS, and really like widespread ignorance just about how transmission even happened, at a time when sex ed was not even something that was taught in China. And so that that was definitely a very important and very formative experience. And UNICEF, a part of the UN, it takes a rights-based approach. And so thinking about and applying human rights principles to public health work and to community building, that's really been the thread throughout my entire career. Is how do we uphold and uplift communities and ensure dignity of every person? That's like in a nutshell my life's work is how to do that, and a lot of it requires like literally grinding away and in community organizing and inviting people into conversations and into the work and into decision-making processes, because as I said, everyone, whether you drink the water or you breathe the air or you have a roof over your head, those are the decisions that are being made at local government level. And so that's one of the greatest gifts and privileges for me is now to serve on the city council, is to actually be part of empowering my own community, my chosen community that I'm raising my children in.
This next question really ties into what I just asked, and it'll overlap with what you kind of answered, but was there a defining moment that made you want to run for office?
So I was appointed in 2019, and like many women of color, I had to be asked multiple times to even throw my hat in the ring. It was not automatic. I mean, there was literally no model for me to look to. There'd never been an Asian woman on the council. None of the people in my family were were elected officials or, played influential political roles. We were, I'd say, comfortable with activism, but I myself had always seen myself as a background person. I saw myself as a community organizer and having strong organizational development skills and really kind of lending my skills to the movement and to the cause in those channels that felt like much more comfortable and much more familiar to me. And it took so many conversations with so many people who helped me see that my voice was needed. And it actually it's a great story. One of the people who really ultimately convinced me to do it was Noelia Corzo, who is the school board trustee on the San Mateo City School Board. And I ran her campaign and I tapped her when I was being asked to run. I said, it's not me, it's Noelia. And I pointed to Noelia and I said, this is your time. And we're going to jump off the cliff together. And I got you. Let's do this. And she was a serious underdog. I mean, she's the child of immigrants. She grew up, ESL in the school district. She's a renter. Her mom cleans houses, and she has a very humble story. And she did not have, rich alma mater to tap into. She had a lot of things working against her, just that many working class people have in terms of social and political mobility and the resources it takes to run campaigns. And so it was a true grassroots effort. And she was elected, and it was really about her work our work together to, to mobilize a campaign to get her on, a seat at the table. And so when she turned around and said, it's your turn and we need your voice, and there's no substitute for your voice or your experience or your skill set. I think at the end of the day, I heard her above every other voice. And she said, if I can do it and you help me do it, you can do it, and you need to do it. And we need you to do it. So step up. So, it was truly like hearing the call to serve. And I don't take it lightly. I mean, it is one of the most sacred trusts that I hold is this opportunity and the chance to give back at this level. It's so profound and so transformative for me personally at an individual level, but but also for all the lives that I touch and all the lives that I get to work with and bring into the work, like yourself, and Ashlyn So, and so many others who've been along the road with me shoulder to shoulder. It's very powerful.
I think that's such an amazing story, and thank you so much for sharing that. And I recall from an earlier conversation that you also mentioned that one of your mentors who inspired and pushed for you to run for office was Rosalind Koo. And could you talk a little bit more about the mentors who have shaped your life and how they were able to do so?
Oh gosh, Rosalind Koo. She is such an important person, and it's so appropriate to be telling her story this month and honoring her. It was an institution in San Mateo. She was one of the original founders of Self-Help for the Elderly, and that organization has, is a multi-million-dollar organization that's not just providing hot meals, but also building affordable housing for Asian seniors or low-income seniors, including many Asian seniors, and doing really important cultural and programming work to make people really have a sense of belonging in their community, which is what the highest goal is of any community, is having a place where we feel like we truly belong and this is home for us. And so when I met Roz, she, many years ago, it's a funny story. I think she was kind of unimpressed with me. She was like, oh, okay, you're nice. Maybe I'll talk to you in a couple of years. But I kept in touch with her as a friend, and I'd pay her social visits, and, I'd give her, books to read, and she'd give me books to read. And we had like a very wonderful, beautiful friendship. And then when it came time for the appointment seat, she said, you're ready, and I'm going to back you, and I'm going to make you work. And you're going to do what I say. and like in the very classic Asian auntie, or Asian grandma, when she said, I'm going to help you, that meant not only is she going to fundraise for me and, connect me to, all everyone in her network, but she wanted me to send her pictures of outfits that I was going to be wearing to meet certain people, so that she would get to just tell me and critique which outfit I was going to be wearing. And she wanted me to wear my hair in a certain way. And she was always, very concerned that I strike a balance between the work and also my job as a mom, and, taking care of my kids and my family. And I think, when we, in this moment of sort of reflection and appreciation about being raised Asian and having an Asian identity, and knowing just like how intertwined the investment is from our elders to the younger generation. The influence and the filial, sort of connection that we feel in that level of kind of intimacy and trust that we have to build to allow people to influence us at such a deep, heartfelt level is very real and profound. I mean, she was not my blood, but she felt like blood, and she treated me like blood. And in all of those, like, in all those lao tai tai ways, down to the critique of which shade of lipstick I should wear. I just feel so incredibly blessed to have, a mentor of her stature, for her to see something in me and bring it forward through her support. And I'll tell you, one of the last conversations I had with her was so beautiful, because she was humble in her own way. Let's put it that way. Because she was such a powerhouse. I was on the council, and she wanted me to show her all the materials that I had done, and all these things, and do this whole review. And so she's like, so that's what you've been doing. Just last week, I raised $30,000 for a village in the Philippines to build a school. So that's what I did last week. So you did something, I did something too. And the job was never done. One of the funny things of her that she said, the last thing that she said before she passed, is she said, I've got 4 out of 5. And what we don't know exactly what she was talking about, because she passed before the story ended, but until the very last day of her last breath, she was scheming about how to do the work, how to get the job done, who she needed to get the votes from and influence, to enact her dream, right, of changing the world and making it a better place so that everyone's life counted. And until her dying breath, she was still scheming. She was still working. And that's the kind of mentor that I've been so incredibly blessed and honored to have in my life. And my job, and the standard that I need to hold myself to, and I do hold myself to, is how do I pay that forward? How do I build that investment in the future generation? Because I'm the first to be on the council, but I'm not going to be the last. I'm not going to be the last Asian woman. And so I'm building my bench, and I'm nurturing my relationship with the young people, and making sure that there's a strong pipeline to take on future roles and responsibilities and leadership in the city.
Thank you so much for sharing. I think that story is so powerful and beautiful in every possible way. And as a civically engaged citizen and someone who holds office, why do you think we have so little AAPI representation in politics and other leadership roles?
It's a vicious cycle of underrepresentation. When you don't have the models, you don't have the role models, you don't have the voter turnout, right? You don't have the seed of, that could be me, right? and I think this last cycle, we saw massive turnout in the API community. And I can't obviously take full credit for that, but I think that it mattered that there was that there's an Asian woman on the ballot, and that people were noticing and turning out and getting registered. It's a hard problem to unpack. And I'll say that, some of the things that I've been doing to really make sure that that changes, and that we can get the representation that we need, so that there are people connected to our experience, right? That can make decisions at the table and speak to issues that specifically affect the API community. It does require, in some ways, like really changing and reforming the campaign finance policies that we have, changing the outreach mechanisms that we have for developing the pipelines and the opportunities for leadership positions in the city. It changes, it means organizationally changing and investing in relationships with partner organizations that serve API community members. And Roz is a great example of that, right? Roz ran a nonprofit organization that was housed in the city of San Mateo, Central Park, serving Asian people. And she was, an instrumental in getting me on council, right? And so there's this feedback loop that needs to happen when you nurture, institutions that support Asian communities, right? And build relationships and bridges between those institutions and policymakers and the political activists. And that's one of the things that I think that I can really lend to the work is that I've done all those things, right? So I can literally embody those bridges because I've walked all those paths. And so, I think that that's very important in terms of like the big picture and the big strategy of how do we make sure that we're truly serving, everyone in the community and that nobody's left out. And it does take, decisions about like, where do we put our resources as a city? What kind of, campaign finance reforms do we need to make? What kind of changes do we need to make to policies so that we're making sure that we're doing adequate outreach for commission seats, right? Or that we're making sure that we're reaching, reaching different neighborhoods or buildings, apartment buildings that have, API or API community hubs or faith communities. Like all of those things at the end of the day matter. There's always has to be sort of a power analysis and a community mapping process in terms of, who holds power, who holds the microphone, where do we put those resources, and where do we need to connect the dots, right? And fill in those gaps. So there's a lot of work to be done to make sure that we make the institutional investments and do the bridging work, the community building and bridging work, and connect the activists to the policy work, connect the social service organizations to the community voices, and that we build the bench.
Definitely. And tying right into that subject, I've also read about the term of the bamboo glass ceiling, which is used to describe specific obstacles and barriers that Asian American women face in reaching the upper echelons of leadership and management. And how have you personally grappled with such barriers?
I mean, I think, a lot of times I've been the only person like myself in a room, right? And it takes a lot of courage in those spaces when you're the only voice to ask the hard questions, right? And to represent the issues, surface the issues that aren't being talked about and that have been made invisible. And it's easy to get sort of pigeonholed, right? There's this challenge, I think, that we have where we need to be a voice, we need to be a representative, but then, the critique then is, they only care about those people, right? They don't like that, she'll only represent these people, or she'll only represent this neighborhood. And I think that that critique undermines the highest purpose of leadership, which for me is about making sure that every voice is represented, right? And that one person, or one community that has been underrepresented, then having an opportunity to be represented does not detract from other communities that already have representation, right? That there needs to be room for everybody. And I think changing that narrative and not entertaining this zero-sum game narrative is very important. As a woman of color in a leadership position, to challenge that narrative and to continually make sure that that we need to be the voice of solidarity, and every voice counts, right? That's where the opportunity for building community power and long-term change really is in building those alliances and making sure that that we have allies in the work.
In your opinion, what is the most rewarding part about being a community leader?
At a macro level, I mean, there's the reward of breaking ground on a project, for example, in the levees getting built, that's going to take, over 1,000 homes out of the flood district. These are mainly like working class and low income homes in North Shoreview and in North Central that are paying, sometimes like, $2,000 and $3,000, $5,000 a year in flood insurance. So, for a working class family, to get out of the flood zone and to know and to have the security that, that the city is building sustainable infrastructure to make sure that no homes in San Mateo are going to flood. Like those are some of the most concrete wins that are so incredibly gratifying. Or being able to point to, this parking lot downtown San Mateo that's going to be turned into 225 affordable homes. These are very concrete investments that are happening in the local government that are changing people's lives, making our whole city a better place, right? But I think that there's this other aspect, which is so beautiful, which is the individual stories. And I'll tell you this one story. One of my favorite restaurants in the world is China Bee. I'm obsessed with their shrimp fried rice, and it's like my like comfort food when I'm sad or when I'm sick. I would just want to eat shrimp fried rice, and from China Bee. And I had a relationship with them long ago. Like literally, my kids like grew up running around that restaurant, and when I joined the council and there was decisions about, street closures and, and outdoor space and eating outdoors, China Bee, the folks at China Bee, which is a second generation, mom and pop restaurant that's run by Chinese, immigrants, they were really worried about a street closure, and they were feeling like they might get railroaded. And they approached me and they said, and we had a really good conversation. And I said, I want you to come and do public comment. Literally, they'd never been inside of City Hall, like not once. This is a restaurant that's been in place for 2 generations, right? They'd never been to San Mateo City Hall. And so for the grandma to get up and give, public comment, and I welcomed her in Chinese, and I said, 欢迎你, and like, just to make her feel comfortable, like, 你讲中文都可以, like if you want to speak Chinese, feel free. We will hear you in whatever language you want to speak. And that was a powerful experience that, that we all were a part of. And after that happened, that grandma, she registered to vote. And she had always voted in Taiwan, but she'd never registered to vote in the U.S. as a citizen of this country. And it took that experience for her to register and to know she can call on me and I will answer the phone, and that her opinion matters and will count.
I know you've already kind of touched on this, but what other changes would you kind of like to see in the AAPI community, and how would you recommend that we go about creating these kinds of changes?
I mean, it's a really big question. I think that one of the things I've been mulling over a lot, actually. There's always the the easy answers, right? Like I want to see more API community leaders step up and attend our council meetings and giving public comment and joining our commissions and voting and registering to vote, like and patroning our API businesses. Like all of those things are obvious to me. Like those things need to happen. They've been been needed to happen. I think for me, like, especially in this moment, where we are seeing such egregious and horrific acts of violence against our elders and against API women very specifically. I think that I would challenge us to bring some complexity into our solutions and our analysis. And I think that there are some important questions that we need to really grapple with in terms of that our position on hate crimes and being tough on crime. There's a lot of very important dialogue and conversations and decisions that are happening about criminal justice reform and about restorative justice and about rehabilitation and mental health services, right? That in fact, those investments make our community much safer, right? But I think that, as we look at the bills that we want to push forward and the investments that we want to make our community safer and to punish, right, to ensure that our seniors can walk down the street without being beaten to death or stabbed. We need to really, I think, rein in this dialogue about being tough on crime, because those solutions have been proven out to not work. They don't, in fact, make our community safer. And so I would love to see more complex analysis in the conversations that we're having about what does it mean to belong, what does it mean to be safe, and what investments are actually scientifically and research-based to prove much more impact and higher levels of efficiency, in terms of resource investment. And while it might make us feel better to demand longer sentences or demand, an eye for an eye, that might feel better at some visceral level. It's actually not. It's not going to get us the solution that we're looking for, which is to be safer. To be safe. And so I really challenge all of us as API community members to fold in the important conversations that are happening about API hate crimes and criminal justice reform, and thinking about how we can connect our asks to proven out models that will in fact be more effective and more cost effective. So that is, I think, a thought I'll end with as an invitation to all of us, because an eye for an eye doesn't work. And I don't want our cause to be, to be co-opted by the forces that actually are pro-death penalty and anti-equity and that are actually working against racial justice.
I agree. I think that's super important. And when you were talking about this, I was thinking about a piece of news that I read about how this old Asian man who was attacked, he was saying, like, I don't want the person who attacked me, to be sentenced. I want them to have a second chance to, go to rehabilitation and learn from their mistakes. So I think that is really important. And what is one word of advice that you would like to give to Asian women pursuing leadership positions?
Step up. Step up. Do it with your eyes open. Know that this is not an easy road, and you will be tested, but you are not alone. And I am here for you, and the community will support you. And this I think anyone who feels called to serve, it comes from a place, a genuine place, that is a true, a true channel to higher purpose and deeper meaning in your life. And I think that when people people hear that and they feel intrinsic motivation to tap into that, that's very powerful, and that's very real. And so, don't quiet that voice, nurture it, and it'll take you to into an amazing future that will open so many doors and so many opportunities. And so it's something that is hard. It's not the easy path, that's for sure. There are many days that I feel like I need a nap for like a long time, like a lot of napping and recovery. But I never regret it. I've never once regretted it. And I just always feel so privileged and so lucky to be in this position. And I think, I want more people like myself to feel this deep sense of gratitude and also gratification, connecting your work and your life to the work of justice.
Definitely. I think that's a super powerful message for everybody. And are there any specific kinds of causes, businesses, or organizations like Self-Help for the Elderly that you would encourage people to support right now?
Yes, I think the API caucus is a very important organization that I would love to elevate. The caucus is really important because it's doing voter education and outreach, and it's also doing the work to support electeds at the through resources and through campaign support, which is very, very important. So the San Mateo County API caucus, Self-Help for the Elderly are definitely in my top two. There's also the Asian American bookstore in downtown San Mateo, which I highly recommend. And just patron our local businesses. They need love and support. Don't let fear guide you. Know that this is our town, this is our community. We belong here. Go out, enjoy your dinner, go to the bookstore, buy some books, vote with your dollars downtown, support your local businesses. That makes a difference. You're essentially, that's the livelihood of somebody, that's somebody's life investment. And it'll, it's a lot. It's one way to enrich our community that's not buying on Amazon. So I really hope that the younger generation will take the time to walk downtown and support our local businesses. That's something very concrete and very fun that we can all do.
Definitely. And lastly, while you're definitely an inspiration to many, I know you've also mentioned a few other figures who have been really inspiring to you, but are there any other inspirations that you would like to shout out who have been important in your life?
Well, I mean, I just lost my 100-year-old mother. She was one of, she was the matriarch in our family, and she was the last of her generation of with 9 siblings to pass. And she was one of my greatest teachers. And she really, I think the lesson that she taught me that cuts across everything was, how to love. And I do believe that, that justice is love in action, and love is justice in action. And so, knowing how to take care of yourself, love the people in your life and love your community, like that for me is like the genesis of everything. And I am that's the seed that my grandmother, my greatest inspiration, planted in me is that lesson of how to how to love. And I think that's been something I've been thinking a lot about, and thinking about how that relates to my life philosophy, my political philosophy, my parenting philosophy, my work philosophy. And it really does. It's like, it cuts across everything. And so just thinking about how we can be more loving and more compassionate, more patient with ourselves, and more resilient, because it takes a lot of resilience to love deeply. And so, yeah, I'll leave it at that. That's for me the kind of the North Star.
Thank you so much. Those were basically all the questions that I had for you, but is there anything else that you would like to add?
I would just like to invite everyone to get plugged in and get involved, hit me up. I really try to be as accessible as possible, and and when I say working shoulder to shoulder, I literally mean let's work together, let's get some stuff done. So I would invite everyone to please follow me on Facebook, Amourence Lee, and on Instagram, and read my blog. I want you to feel this invitation because it's so genuine, and time is precious, and we have a lot of stuff to do.